We're live. What's up? Hello, my friends. Hello out there. Out there on Earth, wherever you may be. Whenever you may be hearing this. Hello. Hello and welcome back to the Sebastian Scales Show, where I talk about the universe and how cool it is to be here, and how also my brain on a regular basis turns every potential decision I make into it genuinely tries to convince me that everything is going to collapse. No matter what decision it may be. This is what I'm noticing, is that my brain is taking harmless scenarios and injecting them with just immense disaster potential without fail, like without taking any seemingly real data into consideration. It's just like, oh, you're texting somebody back? Here's a million ways that they might interpret what you said in a way that they might not like, and then they might not like you. And then what? Like, I get it, it's like, okay, I felt like the way that I survived when I was younger was by making sure that everybody liked me. But what I'm failing to recognize is that even the times when people didn't like me or changed their minds about me or whatever, like, turns out I ended up being totally safe in that too. In the very, worst case scenario that my brain is trying to avoid, I was safe in that too. And it's really interesting fluctuating between, universal goodness and just, basking in the fucking awe of existence. I mean, the fact that I can even have worries is miraculous. The fact that I can even, perceive anything. The fact that any of us can, do anything. We are literally in the middle of nothingness forever. And we're in a situation where we get to, sit down and eat food and have friends. Some of whom will be mad at us at some point. And already have been, and it's been fine. Even as I'm speaking, the mechanism is firing. It's like a turret that is manned by no one, just spinning around and shooting bullets that are infused and generated by fear. Just at all times, just as much as it possibly can. And it's and just shooting shit, just desperately trying to, I guess, kill enemies, aka scenarios of judgment or misinterpretation or dislike or whatever it is, trying to shoot shit that isn't there. And it doesn't even recognize that, hey, you haven't, I'm barefoot in my parents' backyard right now. You know how it's all-time safe space. But I'm also barefoot in the backyard where I lived when a lot of these thought patterns originated. I was thinking about the trauma and the trial and different those trauma often like is the creator of these perceptions, which obviously in and of itself is brutal. But oftentimes it's like it's the compounding, it's the time that we spend continuing to believe what the trauma taught us, or what we perceived was necessary to do to survive the trauma. That's like where the real damage is done. And it's not damage that you can't heal from. You can heal from anything. It's just that, like, you know, all these beliefs were developed. A lot of them were developed when I was like 11 or 8, and then my nervous system just never got the update. My brain didn't get new operating systems installed, and so now you have to go back however many decades later and start untangling these systems that were brilliant at the time. And now we can recognize with awareness that are no longer necessary. And even like as I was about to record this, I'm like, dude, you can't do another episode of talking about anxiety. Oh, really? Where does it say that in the rule book of my own podcast? That's just another bullet firing from this fear turret trying to fucking I don't even know what it's trying to. It's like it's as if again, any decision, because if this is the thing, if I had gone on and talked about synchronicities or more quote unquote positive things that are happening in my life, then my brain would probably say, dude, last week you were talking about anxiety and now you're just, you're better now, you're just miraculously going to be okay now. And then I'd be imagining people judging me through that lens, and it's like, okay, check it out, man, this never ends until you change your belief systems, and all of us can do that. But if I insist, if I like try, if I it's not something you can force. It's not a forcing that does it. It's just a watching. But like, okay, you've got this thought train. I'm sure I've said this on the podcast before, but you've got this train that's been running for most of your life. This train of belief that judgment is dangerous. And every time you buy into the thought that happens to be generated from that belief system, you put more coal into the train. And every time you watch it, which is the effort, it's the belief in the thought that gives the thought weight. If you don't believe the thought, then you can watch it, and it's like a cloud. Every thought, it's like, these are not material things. This is it's not something that has any weight, but you generate the weight by believing in it. But if you don't, and you recognize it as a cloud, it will float by, just like every cloud that's ever existed. Every thought you've ever had has eventually floated away. But it feels like, when you're in it, it's like, oh, this is a storm that will never pass. Despite every storm that's ever happened having passed. No, this is the one that's going to last forever. So if we just keep watching it, every time you watch it and don't buy into it, one, you get the nervous system relief of not, like your fight or flight gets activated when you believe the thought. But if you don't believe the thought, if you don't react to it, then it's not like the thought can hurt you. The thought appears and then you believe it and then you start hurting yourself. because your body doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not real. It only is going off of what your belief systems are. So if you believe that somebody judging you has the same amount of danger potential as a tiger, then your body will react as if it needs to literally fight, fly away, freeze, whatever it is. So every time you watch it, it's like putting no more coal in the train. And at a certain point, that train will run out of steam. But just because you're aware of it doesn't mean it stops immediately. So I think that's where it's like, we got to be compassionate with ourselves, you know? It's frustrating as fuck to be like, you know, years into healing and still be, you know, like I'm 31 years old and I'm fucking back home feeling like an absolute child in terms of how I'm perceiving reality. I almost panicked myself into an anxiety attack trying to figure out how to say no to some friends who wanted to hang out this past weekend. And I love my friends and I would love to see them in general, but just I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it that weekend. And that was a big thing in my life growing up, was feeling like I felt like the trauma made me not feel like I could say no, or, you know, just assumed that bad things would happen if I did say no. And then again, everything gets conflated and convoluted in your psyche and it starts bleeding into, you know, not saying no to being molested makes you think that, you know, you can't say no to hanging out with people or whatever it is. It's not necessarily that direct, but you know, without awareness, all of this stuff just blends together, and every time you watch it, you see a little bit more clearly, and you get to provide that part of yourself that is scared, that is still, you know, tiptoeing through reality, thinking that one wrong word or one wrong text message or one delayed message or whatever it is going to be the thing that causes everything to collapse. Every time you watch these thoughts without reacting to them, you are giving that part of yourself new data. And I think that's how we change these things. Because eventually, you know, the train will run out of steam, but it's got decades of momentum, so just keep watching it. I was noticing this with my phone, you know, sometimes, like, I don't know what this is called, but when you have texts that you need to respond to, and then you start feeling like overwhelmed by the amount of people you have to respond to, and then it causes you to just shut down and respond to no one, and then time passes, and then you start feeling bad about not responding, and then you start thinking that the people you haven't responded to are getting upset, like, by the moment, which, again, this is all just, it's all ego. It's still me thinking that these people who I haven't responded to are upset with me, aka they're taking, you know, they're as if they're not living their whole own life, filled with all their own anxieties and shit, and just as if they're just sitting there like, where is this piece of shit Sebastian? Why isn't he responding? You know, that is an extremely egoic thing to think. It doesn't feel like it, you know, because we think of ego as like, I'm the fucking best, you know. But it is egoic to think that people are sitting around judging you. It's not to say that it isn't real, but it's just recognize that the odds of you being right about that are 1 in fucking infinity. Because they can think anything about anything else. And then you just start to see how it's like, okay, my brain is just turning these whoever I happen to be interacting with into somebody who has an issue with me that I need to fix. You know? And I think as we watch this, we see the ridiculousness of it more and more. And you start to sort of double check it with your own experience. You know, like if I have plenty of friends who, you know, will take a long time to respond to me, and then when they respond, I'm not like, where the fuck have you been? I'm not like, you piece of shit. I've been sitting here waiting for a week. No, I've been in my head about the people I haven't responded to. But it's like, can't you just let people be happy to see you and happy to hear from you whenever it happens to happen? You can. Absolutely you can. It's unfamiliar. I've been spending a shocking amount of my mental attention and energy over the course of my life micromanaging the hypothetical emotional and psychological states of the people that I'm around. But I don't have to do that. Nothing is requiring me to do that. Just like there's no rules for my podcast. There's no rules for texting etiquette. I mean, this is all so new to humanity too, like the ability to communicate with everyone you've ever known forever at any moment. You know, that is a very recent ability that now pretty much everyone on Earth has. And the other thing is, it's like, dude, I'm 31, but whether you're 31 or 21 or 61, like, there are so many things happening in the lives of other people. Just like how most people have no idea what's really going on in your mind, in your life. Same thing goes for them. So let them have other experiences than just being upset with you. I get it, I get that this was dangerous at one point in time. But it isn't anymore. And in fact, it's wonderful data. If I say no to hanging out with one of my friends and they're like, fuck you, what do you mean you don't want to hang out? That's wonderful information to be given. That's not something that needs to be avoided, dude. If you've got friends like that, you should let them show you that so that you can realize that that's not somebody you should be hanging out with in general. Because the funny thing about it is, like, people are so much more understanding than my brain gives them credit for. And if they're not understanding, that's actually okay too. That's not something that needs to be avoided. That's something that should be welcomed. It's just other people's emotional states are not your responsibility. It's not to say go around and be a dick, but you don't need to preemptively try to figure out how to move through reality in a way that doesn't upset anyone. You're always going to upset people. But people being upset with you doesn't have to contain the degree of weight that it once had. There are like, my brain doesn't even consider the fact that they could be upset with me and things could be okay. Ultimately, we could hang out next weekend or whenever. It's a wild thing to consider. Like, what would it be like to drop your entire operating system? What would happen? I get glimpses of it. I think the more you heal this kind of stuff, the more synchronicities you see, because all that attention is being freed up instead of worrying about people who love me being upset with me. I'm able to like look at the sunset. Is it getting dark right now? Yes. Are you still allowed to record? Absolutely, man. Free will. And there was a comment on the last episode. Thank you guys. I'm starting to post on YouTube again, and I'm planning to post this episode on there. And there was a comment on the last episode. There were some really lovely comments. I wanted to read this one. It's from Rick. Thank you so much. I'm 68 and was molested several times starting at the age of 7. Everything you speak of as far as checking out and the triggers I completely understand. I have lived my life checking out when I need to hide for a bit. Talking about disassociation and that kind of stuff. Listening to you has been a big help. I'm hiding from people who are dead. That was the line. I was like, oh, we got to talk about this, because that is what is... I just resonated so heavily with that. Hiding from people who are dead. Hiding from people who literally cannot harm us anymore. And I think that, that's a classic example of our nervous systems not getting the update that we're safe now. So thank you for that comment, Rick. It's really, I read that and just felt so filled with purpose and enthusiasm, and it's nice to be understood on that level. And you're allowed to have voice cracks. But yeah, so there you go. Whether you're 31 or 68, these our nervous systems are they're basically, they're not asking for help, but most of us need help updating our systems from the fear-based belief systems that we developed from whatever it is that happened in our childhoods or adulthood. Because even in a situation where literally the person that you're hiding from is dead, on some level our nervous system still isn't adjusting to that, right? So I just thought that was a perfect example of our nervous system's longing for updates. Like I flew to New Mexico to do a keynote speech, which I've been doing over the last couple of years. It's just like these incredible experiences where I get to go in and, talk about what happened to me in these rooms full of people who are, I think I've done episodes on this. I definitely have. But rooms full of people. Hey, man, it's okay if you've talked about this before. It's like, maybe the turret isn't the right analogy. Maybe it's more like a spotlight. It's like if Sauron's eye from Lord of the Rings was just having a panic attack. Actually, there's a moment I think when it's like about to collapse, where the eye starts like freaking out, and it's like, I think it's looking for the ring, or it's looking for Frodo, or whatever's going on, but like this giant eye that oversees everything is just like spazzing out, like frantically looking around. And then, if I remember right, the whole like tower that it's on collapses, which is actually exactly how I've been feeling about all of this stuff. Is that we don't need to look at a flailing psyche or flailing nervous system as signs of regression or defeat or anything. In a way, it's like the louder it gets, the more frantic it gets, the closer you are to really dissolving these systems, because they're freaking out and getting louder because they think you need to do this to survive. So don't be discouraged if you're dealing with this kind of stuff, which I think pretty much all of us are on some level. But anyway, yeah, so just a panicky spotlight. Just turning all of my friends into orcs. Or, defense attorneys in the courtroom or whatever it is. So anyway, I went to New Mexico to do this speech, and I got there, and I was the closing keynote, so I just came right at the end of the conference. And when I got there, it was this really nice resort that they were having it at, and when I went up an hour before my speech and checked in, and they had gotten me this welcome basket with and they had a handwritten note saying thanks for coming, and they got me some awesome salsas, New Mexican salsas, and it's just this really sweet basket of gifts, and they handed it to me, and then I was going to go back to my room and do something before coming back down to do the speech. And I remember getting this welcome basket and feeling so nice, of them to do this. And then I remember thinking dude, I better not fuck up my speech. because this is a really nice basket. Because these people are really nice. Because they flew me out here. They're paying me. I mean, and I've done 10 of these speeches, but for whatever reason, the headspace that I was in, and I think again with all the emotion that's been coming up the last couple of months, I think I was just susceptible, just feeling a little anxious. And it was just so funny to watch. I'm like, yeah, man, they gave you this salsa to try to make it so that you you better not fuck this up now that they gave you these 3 lovely things of salsa and a handwritten note. Now I'm going to turn it on. Yeah, as if before I was just going to give some shitty presentation. And so I remember when I got back to my room and I was doing all this stuff, and then I started reciting my speech. And at this point, it's this isn't. I've noticed that when I'm feeling anxious or whatever, I tend to view it more as something I have to get right, rather than something I could never get wrong. It's my own story. But the part of my brain that fires and thinks oh no, they did these really nice things for you, so you better do a good job, as if I was going to get up there and just take a shit on the podium and just fucking tank and just be hated. It's basically what happened is they did something nice for me, and then my brain created imaginary pressure about what that means and what has to happen now because of it, and starts to pretend like that wasn't going to be the case beforehand, as if I had just shown up and gone up then and done my speech, then it wouldn't have whatever, And what a classic example of a misinterpretation of reality. Instead of being wow, these people are stoked to have me here, and they're really nice, and I can't wait to go do my speech that they literally are paying me to do here. It's taking a nice thing and turning it into something that is now more weight on what I'm going to do. Which, of course, also they would never want. I think that my brain tries to convince me that I'm doing this for them now, do a good speech because they got me this salsa. When in reality, it's like these people, the last thing these people would want is for me to be anxious about the gift that they got me. Sometimes I feel this way about, like, if I get, like, actually, this is a good sign of progress too, or if you get a DM from somebody, or like a really nice comment, like from Rick, and I feel like amazing getting it, and then when I go to reply, I watch my brain start coming up with all the ways that what I'm saying is not going to be enough, which again is just the belief system of my truth is not enough, I am not enough, whatever it is that has been running for forever. Actually, not forever. You were not born with that belief. You acquired it in trauma and childhood, whatever. But I start thinking that what I'm going to say is not enough, and then I end up not responding because I can't come up with a way to respond that feels like it will be adequate. That's what I'm trying to fully let go of. And just, it's so fun to just even imagine a reality where I get a message from somebody or a text message from a friend or whatever it is, and I just get to read it and let it hit me and then respond as it happens and not have to run it through a fucking trial simulator in my brain before I can move. That's what I'm excited about. And it's not binary. It's not like, oh, that's the reality now or not. I mean, you can tap into that reality anytime you want. Anytime you remain non-reactive and just move. Yeah, that's always available for us. So anyway, watch myself create that pressure for that speech. And then I got there and I started setting up my cameras because I record all of my speeches. And I was in the back of the room while there is a big auditorium. It was like 400 people. And I think, wow, my brain just felt the need to clarify. It might have been less. It might have been more. I'm not sure exactly. Hey, man, you're not on trial. It's not a test. Nobody from that conference is going to listen to this and think you're a fucking liar. It was 500 people or it was 300 people. Again, just scanning. Turret, Sauron's eye, whatever you want to call it. Just another flicker. And so I'm setting up my camera and somebody came up to me and she was like, hey, like I follow you on Instagram. Like, I love your stuff. Can we take a photo? And I was like, yeah, of course, like, and this is still like a relatively new experience for me, is people wanting to do that kind of thing. And so and regardless, like, it's so cool, but I feel like I'm still kind of getting used to it. And I mean, not that you need to or anything, but I just basically, we did that and we chatted for a little bit. And then she was like, all right, well, I'll let you get back to it. And I was kind of like, oh yeah, no, I mean, no worries, whatever. And there's like, I mean, we were sort of like whispering too, because there's obviously another speech going on. And I remember within seconds of her walking away, my brain thought, you did not spend enough time with her just now. AKA what you did was not enough. Just another flicker of, And by the way, if I had spent too much time with her, then my brain probably would have been like, dude, she was trying to leave and you like, just kept talking her ear off. This person who wanted a photo. It's so funny, dude. So that happened, and then I went up, did my speech. Well, beforehand, they did this like super nice introduction. This like lovely lady read off like just a bunch of nice stuff about me before I got on stage. And when I went to walk up, I was holding stuff in both of my hands, like my notes and whatever, a water bottle or something. And we sort of walked by each other, and I didn't get a chance to like shake her hand. Even, and as I'm getting on stage to deliver this speech, my brain is thinking like that you just fucked that up. You didn't even because we didn't like look at each other really when we walked by each other. And of course I got up there and said, thank you for that lovely introduction, but that didn't appear to be enough. Because it's never enough when you're coming from the belief system of I am not enough. Nothing you can do is enough in that belief system. So rather than these thoughts and fears being like surprising, I mean, it should really be expected. It's like, okay, every time I go to record a podcast, my brain's going to come up with a bunch of reasons why this one is not going to be adequate, and you don't have enough things to talk about, and nothing interesting happened this last week, so you might as well wait till next week. And whatever it is, you can just expect it, really. And again, just watch. Expect the clouds to come and know that they will pass. Meanwhile, I'm on stage in front of hundreds of people thinking to myself, before I've even started, that I've done something wrong. So anyway, I do my speech, and I remember there was like the first like quarter of it, maybe a third, or maybe a half, I don't know exactly. Some amount of time passed, and I felt myself being in my head and being, treating it more like points that I need to hit rather than just allowing myself to tell the story in whatever way I happen to tell it. It was like, again, turning my own story into a test that other people are like evaluating me on instead of just being in the moment. And which is what I've done in speeches in the past, is like, now that I have my PowerPoint and but really I'm just going up, and there's so much to say, and so you just kind of tell it in whatever way feels right. And that's when it feels the most fluid. But for the first bit of that speech, I felt like I was in my head, and then I caught it. And I was like, consciously started breathing slower, similar to what happened in the last episode or whenever it was, talking about when I started disassociating on stage. It's like coming back, slowing down, deep breaths, looking at people, coming back into the moment, being with what's actually happening, not speeding up, not trying to rush through, not like getting in my head thinking whatever, just allowing myself to re-enter the moment despite it feeling uncomfortable. And really, anytime you slow down, you're giving your nervous system an opportunity to breathe and like register that these are not tigers in the audience. They are child abuse prevention professionals who are excited to hear you speak. That's what's going on. Oh. So the second part of the speech was so much lighter, dude. I felt so much better immediately just by remembering that this is not a test, and I can't fuck it up. And the rest of it went great. And I remember afterwards, I finished my speech, and I'm still kind of figuring out the ending because new stuff keeps happening, and I keep adding to it and whatever. And so it kind of ended, and it got like a wonderful reception. Even as I was about to say this, there was part of my brain that was like, dude, you're going to sound like a douche if you say this. Because it wasn't everybody, but some people stood up and gave me a standing ovation. And I was like, that's fucking amazing. It wasn't everyone, but it was a lot of people. And it doesn't have to be anyone. It could be one person, and that would be amazing. But again, as I'm speaking, my brain is scanning for ways that you, whoever's listening, watching, might happen to think that I'm a douche. And by the way, if you do, I'm safe. So anyway, incredible response from the audience. And then the organizer, the lady who had introduced me and the organizer of the conference got on stage, and they were saying nice things, and then they started kind of wrapping up because it was the end of the conference. And I just stood up there, and I realized, like, after a little bit, I was like, oh, I should get off the stage. And they weren't going to be like, hey, can you get out of here now? So I just kind of walked down, and immediately I was like, you fucking, why didn't you get up? That looks so crazy that you were on stage. See, and this is where, I mean, it really doesn't matter what happens. It's like I just got off stage to an incredible audience response, and then I think that this whole audience who just applauded me has now turned on me because I stayed on the stage too long. Remember a second ago when I thought that they all thought that I was some ungrateful fucking dude who just got on stage and didn't shake the hand of the person who introduced me? Where's that in the rule book, man? It's not just rules for your podcast or, where's the rule book for reality that says that you have to do any of this shit that I'm worried about having been insufficient about? It's all made up, dude. And fortunately, because it's all made up, you get to make it up differently. You get to change these rules anytime you want. So anyway, I had some really amazing interactions with people after the speech, and then I just remember, like, thinking, I was so in my head about having fucked up the first part of the speech, and wow, so not the case. Fucked up the first part of the speech, aka I didn't feel totally in my body, totally in the zone in the way that I did later on. But that doesn't mean you fucked it up, dude. I mean, again, talk about just arguing with reality. I'm going to be standing up there getting a standing ovation from the audience, and my brain's in my head like, you're weird though. Yeah, man, the whole audience is lying. What about the people who didn't stand up? They must hate you. They can't just like you a little bit less, or, just not feel like standing. I've done these speeches before, and nobody stood up it hasn't been a standing ovation, and I wasn't, in my head then thinking that, like, that must mean it's a failure. I'm sure I was in my head about something else. But when you really see the mechanism, it's like, dude, you are desperately clinging on, trying every fucking trick in the book to make these beliefs persist. And they don't have to. But just keep watching. Don't buy into it. Don't put more coal in the train. Just keep riding it out. Watch it as it slows down over however long it takes. And come back. This is what I was like laughing to myself after, because when I got back to my room, I just noticed, like, everyone left pretty fast, like the organizers and stuff. And it was, again, the end of the conference, and, like, people are rushing to get flights or whatever it is. And I start thinking in my head, like, oh shit, were people leaving because, I mean, dude, I could, because the speech sucked. Yes, man. Yes, they stood up and applauded you and then said, now that we've sufficiently convinced this piece of shit that he was good when he actually wasn't, now let's all run away from him and go home. So silly. I got back to my hotel room and was just like, man, I felt like I did. And then, relaxed. And eventually it was just like, hey, man, you just got flown out here to do this speech. And you did it. And people loved it. And there's no danger. Nobody attacked you because you didn't shake the hand of the person who brought you up. It's funny too, right? Like, I'm literally getting on stage and talking about like my trauma and like all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but the way that I delivered it at the beginning of it wasn't enough. It wasn't perfect. And by the way, I don't think it ever can be. Of course, it can't be from the perspective of these beliefs that think that it'll never be enough. There will always be something. And rather than being surprised when these things pop up, whatever the inadequacy belief latches onto this time or any time, you just recognize it and just keep being with that. Keep being with that belief and that part of yourself that feels that way. I mean, this is not a dismissal of any of this. It's a constant reminder to the part of yourself or parts of yourself that are afraid that they're safe now. And you don't have to keep contorting reality into a way that matches these belief systems. Unfortunately, reality, when viewed uncontorted, is just it's not even in the same realm as these beliefs. I mean, if you look at objectively what happened, I'm living in my dream life, man. Shit's happening that I couldn't have fathomed just recently. To let that all in now. And so the rest of the night, once I sort of settled down, was great. You're also allowed to have like it not go perfectly and still have it be more than enough. I feel like part of the trial, made it feel like if I get any question wrong about what happened to me, if I forget any detail, then my whole truth collapses, which is part of what I remember when I was back in my room after the speech. I was like, fuck, I totally forgot to talk about like the gift giving and the grooming and different things that I mean, it's like an hour and 15 minutes that I'm up there speaking. So like, you're always going to forget shit. But I started thinking that because I forgot that, that also just made me wonder, that could be an interesting connection too about the salsa. Because the guy who molested me would get me gifts. And I remember feeling like I owed him because of the gifts. And so maybe on some level that same belief system is latching on to somebody who is not molesting me, giving me a gift of salsa and a nice note. My brain's trying to turn somebody, literally the person who booked me for this event, into the person who caused the trauma that now I'm talking about 2 decades later. And I'm grateful, I'm grateful to be aware of this kind of stuff, because it's like, there's another instance of my reality, my brain turning a gift into something that is an issue for me now. And how wonderful it is and will continue to be as I allow myself to be able to receive more and more deeply without feeling like this means I have to do something I don't want to do or whatever, So, yeah, I had a great rest of the night. the next morning I got an Uber to the airport, and when I hopped into the Uber, the driver was like, "So, like, what are you up to? What have you been up to in New Mexico?" And I was like, well, here we go, you know. And I was like, oh yeah, I run this nonprofit, and I was doing a speech for these child abuse advocates, and immediately started talking about how I was molested, and now I talk to people about what happened to me. It's like a minute into the drive. And this guy was so cool. He was an older guy, probably like 60 whatever. Wow, my brain just flickered to, oh, Rick, don't think that means that I think you're old. Hey man, you can be old and that's great. I'm gonna be old. I'm already old. I feel fucking old, and I'm 31. Just another scan. Yeah, man, Rick's gonna hate you now because you think 68 is old. Newsflash: 68 is old. 31 is old. You're allowed. My brain is a wild place. Anywho, this, yeah, no, what else am I gonna say? Like, no, yeah, he was super young, I get, like, middle-aged, whatever, dude. It's fine. Love you, Rick. No matter how old you are. And I love myself, no matter how old I am. So this gentleman who was a human who had some time has passed, and whatever age he was, he seemed older. And he immediately started talking about how when he was a kid, this like older guy, this older kid, like exposed himself to him, and he started talking about that experience. And then you could tell after a little bit, he was like he said out loud, he was like, yeah, I don't think I've ever told anyone that. You're actually the first person I've ever told that to. And I was like, yeah, let's go. Thank you for telling me. And also, this is like the type of shit that it's so confirming of like, again, the opposite of what I thought. When I was going through all of this, dude, I thought it was only me. I didn't even know this happened to other people. And then you start talking about whatever trauma it is, and then you find that there's billions of people on Earth who have had similar experiences, and everyone on Earth has had some form of trauma and can relate on some level. So we started having this conversation. That was the start of the conversation, and we're chatting about all the stuff that happened to both of us. And then I just kind of realized, like, I forget because this is what I do now. So I'm like, these types of things happen often. But I was just laughing to myself. I remember like midway through the Uber just thinking to myself, like, this is a wild conversation to be having with a stranger. And I love it. I welcome it. And I look forward to continuing to live in a world where that type of experience is something that, lots of people get to have. Anyone who wants to have it can have it. Because it's very, again, feeding your nervous system a different perception of what's possible and real. It's like, hey man, not only are you not alone, but if you hop into any Uber, pretty much every driver will have a story as well. So got out, had a great rest of the ride, and then I got on the flight, and I don't know what it is about airplanes, dude, but I have just been crying on airplanes lately. And so I was having a nice release of emotion. And then the lady who was sitting next to me, it was like just the two of us, and at one point she had like sort of asked me what I was watching, and I started watching One Piece, and so I told her what I was watching, and we just had this brief chat, and it seemed like she was kind of interested in interacting, so we had interacted a couple of times, and then when the plane landed, I was flying back to Seattle, and we started chatting again, and she was like, so what were you up to here? And I was like, here we go again, And so I told her, and we had this cool chat, and she ended up telling me that her daughter was molested, and they had gone to court, and the whole, like, such similar experiences, and again, so I'm talking to this lady on a plane about the worst things that have happened to us. And we don't know each other. We just met, and we're like having this conversation, and it's wonderful. And I'm like, it's just the trippiest shit. It's like, okay, the two modes of public transportation that I happened to take today, both of which resulted in me and whoever I was with sharing our traumas and having a great time while doing it. And it was just this, I don't know, man. It's interesting to have that experience, especially about something that forever has been kept so quiet and secret and buried underneath shame and fear and all this stuff. And then it turns out you just start talking about it, and like, there's a global community of people who know what you mean. And it was just very, just confirming, It felt very confirming of the work that I've been doing and how I've been feeling, and just that, I wish everyone, and everyone can. I was like, I wish everyone who would like to have an experience like that could, and you can just, I think a big part of it is people matching, how you feel about it. So people ask what I'm up to, and I tell them what I'm up to, and then all of a sudden, they know that this is a space that, like, hey, you can share this kind of stuff, and it's totally all good. And so it's just, and then all of a sudden they're sharing it too, and then we're just two strangers having just a absolutely wild conversation, and it's energizing and rejuvenating, and it's not something that is heavy and whatever. And you feel like so close with them. The lady and I, exchanged contact information, and I was like, let me know if I can help with anything, So it's pretty cool, man. It's pretty cool. And I am grateful to be in the reality that I'm in, even as the patterns of the past try to convince me that it's still the past. But it's not. And it gets to be this whole new reality that we get to write the rules for, or just keep recognizing that there are no rules. You get to you can perceive anything however you want forever, always. No one has any power over you. Your entire experience in reality is caused by your perceptions. So if you want to have a different experience, perceive what's happening differently, and then you literally immediately do. Perception is the whole game, man. It's pretty fun, pretty cool. And as we approach the end of this episode, I imagine my brain will come up with all sorts of reasons why this one was the one that was definitely not enough. This is going to be the one that causes everyone to stop listening as we hit an hour. Yeah, man, you better wrap this shit up perfectly. Otherwise, it's over. Not the case any longer. I almost didn't even record this episode for... I don't even fucking remember the reason. Well, it's too late. It's too dark. Turns out I actually like doing this with this lantern. Or, what do you call it? Mosquito repellent light. It's actually super nice. So, once again, what my brain thought was a valid reason to not do something that I know that I wanted to do turned out to not be the case at all, and everything's just, it's so fine, dude. Everything is so good. And even when it's not good, it's good. We're lucky to even experience the shit that we don't want to experience, dude. Again, the fact that that can happen at all is amazing. And now I'm in my head and I feel like I'm rambling. But you're allowed to ramble, dude. You just talked for an hour and now you think you're rambling? It's the same shit as the speech, man. Was this perfectly coherent? It doesn't have to be for you to be safe. You're not on trial. So whatever it is, whatever's going on in your life, if you're going through stuff, if you're having these types of thoughts, or your version of whatever it is, keep going. Keep watching it all happen. And just keep letting yourself know that you're safe. And feeling into that safety. And the more we do that, the better it gets. Okay. Feels good. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Sending you lots of love. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.